Let's go. And in these moments, you might have wished that you could TM your Alolan Ninetales to Powder Snow for a better Trevenant matchup to kind of cover a Pokemon that's been so problematic. But as we know, these trainers locked in those movesets, and they've been on stream. So there are very few secrets. This is an even playing field. The fighters have measured each other. They know what to expect, and it's going to be interesting because everything is on the line.
Yes, I believe the biggest tango, if you will, is do you bring out the Registeel to the dance, or do you sit it and you bring the counters to the Registeel? And here we go. We do have a game here for a ticket to the grand finals. It's Umbreon into Azumarill.
Definitely a positive lead here for kiengiv, but Trent knows the value of energy. He's going to stay in this matchup for a moment, and you might notice he has 2 Pokemon on his team that will not fare very well against the Fairy Water type.
Yeah, Trent, just go ahead and throw these last resorts here. Azumarill does not mind this at all, can just get to these play roughs and do super effective damage. It will take multiple to take out the bulk of Umbreon.
Absolutely. Umbreon is going to deploy a Protect Shield. This is a bit surprising to me in a negative matchup, deciding to maintain some HP on the Umbreon.
Yeah, like you mentioned, unusual, right? When it's a negative matchup, you kind of usually take your losses, but for some reason, Trent decides that he wants to protect this Umbreon, maybe expecting a Trevenant in the back line.
That could be possible. That could definitely be a potential option here for kiengiv, but it looks like the Azumarill is going to use another play rough here. This will deal super effective damage, this time Trent saving his final Protect Shield.
Yeah, letting it go here. I'm not sure if the Umbreon can still take this matchup up 1 shield to nothing. Trent is definitely going for it. He would know better than me, and the last resort is going to be coming through. Trent does need 2 to knock out this Azumarill, though.
Umbreon throwing that normal type last resort, just a bit of chip damage, but suddenly Azumarill is down into the red in terms of HP, and Umbreon strikes again.
But this Azumarill is extra large. I think it's gonna be able to take this, and it can. It needs another bubble, and it gets there. It gets to the bubble to hang on, to throw the play rough into this Umbreon and hit the second Protect Shield.
What is happening here? Umbreon double shielding through the Azumarill matchup and finally gets the Snarl down, a victory, but at what cost?
Yeah, at what cost indeed. Here comes the Shadow Wall Rain for kiengiv. Gonna throw the Foul Play into it, not using a Protect Shield yet at all, just letting it through.
Absolutely, recognizing they can absorb this foul play. Again, knowing your Pokemon, trusting in your Pokemon is so critical in these PvP matchups. We saw that with King's Azumarill, and he is trusting in his Shadow Wall Rain yet again.
And once again, perfect timing by kiengiv to throw this Icicle Spear right before foul play energy on the Umbreon, up the shields, but now it is the Medicham, and it is gonna be into the Trevenant, and now it's the Alolan Ninetales.
I don't know if it's time to break out the brooms yet, but the Trevenant is going to strike with the Shadow Ball here. There are no Protect Shields, no need to bait, and we see the full force of the Ghost-type Shadow Ball here.
Look at that damage. Did so much. Didn't quite knock out the Alolan Ninetales. Needs to go for the Shadow Claw down, and is almost going to get it, and it does get it. So little health, though, left for the Trevenant. Needs to get to this Shadow Ball, and it does!
Trevenant resisting those counters, and it strikes yet again. Another Shadow Ball here. This is going to deal super effective damage. Medicham takes the brunt of the force, and one more claw sweeps it away.
Yeah, one Shadow Claw to finish that out. But look at that, kiengiv taking it 1-0 there. Once again, Trevenant in the back for this team is able to take it, able to just sweep. Interesting decision from Trent to double shield that lead matchup against Azumarill.
How do you feel about that? Because I think that in some situations, the way that trainers deploy their shields tells a lot about the backline, about what their future strategy might be, about how they value the Pokemon that's on the field. So when you double shield a Pokemon like that in a negative matchup, do you think that was a bluff or a part of the strategy?
No, I think it was part of the strategy to one shield it. I think it was part of the strategy to try to knock out the Azumarill up using one shield and the Azumarill using 0. But that Azumarill was so bulky, able to hang on with like almost literally 1 hit point left and throw that play rough, and that was not in the plan.
And of course, you take that information into the next game. Maybe if you're in that situation, you don't decide to deploy both Protect Shields because you know that even given the prior matchup, you can't win it, and you take that information into the next battle, and hopefully you can use that to put yourself forward.
Yeah, now knowing it's not gonna be a possibility against kiengiv's Azumarill, you probably don't want to go for that anymore. But I do believe that was the strategy, that was the plan, didn't quite play out. So now Trent has actually lost 4 games in a row to this team. How does he adjust? And he completely shakes it up because we have a Galarian Stunfisk into the Azumarill.
Azumarill generally favored in this matchup, but a lot hinges on these charge attacks. Azumarill has revealed both the Ice Beam and the Play Rough, so this Galarian Stunfisk will not take super effective damage from either of these charge moves.
Yes, and this Earthquake is neutral, but as we've seen time after time after time, this bunny can take a hit.
Azumarill standing strong there. The Earthquake kind of bounces off of it, and we do see kiengiv deciding to deploy an Ice Beam. Already though, Butters, these trainers are thinking, is this the best possible position for these Pokemon on my team?
Yeah, and we know there's the backline matchups that you want to have a good Trevenant backline matchup, and we see Trent does have the Umbreon, so this lead matchup is extremely important. Once again, kiengiv does not want to use shields on Azumarill.
He trusts the Azumarill to take all of this damage, and it does, standing strong in the red in terms of HP. And here comes another Ice Beam. No Protect Shield from Trent. He is going to try to play with energy advantage and give up Switch.
Yeah, and this time, not Protect Shielding the lead, trying to get some energy advantage like you mentioned, but not caring as much about alignment and trying to get this huge Mudshot down. I don't think he's going to be able to do it, and he won't because he's cut off by an Ice Beam, and you see Trent look up to the sky.
This is a big call for Trent. He's trying to decide if this is Ice Beam or Play Rough. It is an Ice Beam, which will deal slightly less damage because it is not same type attack bonus from the Azumarill.
Yes, and you see the Trevenant is available to just soak all of this damage. These Hydro Cannons are going to hurt, but the thing is, this is not Shadow Swampert. So it's going to take 3 of these Hydro Cannons instead of 2.
Let's just talk about how critical that initial matchup was. We see the Swampert versus the Trevenant. That's because kiengiv was able to win that matchup, and now the Umbreon comes out. If King did not win the lead, this would have been the matchup that we see, but instead, he's able to jump to Registeel against the Umbreon.
And that was a great swap. When you were behind, you need to do everything you can to claw your way back to victory. And so swapping on that Seed Bomb was huge by kiengiv, but look, it's matched up against the Registeel.
Now Registeel going to absorb the first foul play. We are seeing kiengiv reaching for the Focus Blast, wanting to deal some super effective damage.
This time it makes sense. Because of that Seed Bomb, this Umbreon is possibly in range of Focus Blast. So maybe you don't need 2 charge moves. So you want to go for the energy efficient move and the super effective move.
Energy efficient and super effective. So many calculations that are happening in every microsecond of this battle. We do see another foul play come through here from the Umbreon. Both of these Pokemon known for their bulk, so they will exchange plenty of charge moves in this matchup.
And even though it may look like these 2 Pokemon are slowly whittling each other down, you have to be thinking about the backline. You have to be thinking about future plans. There's a lot to this end game here.
And both trainers visualizing the end game as the switch clock expires, but the difference here is that Trent is out of Protect Shields.
Yeah, and still 2, and no shield once again. kiengiv does not want to use those Protect Shields, and taking that foul play, no problem. And now, how is this Swampert going to react? And now the foul play comes through. I think it's finally going to be shield time.
I think it's finally time to deploy his shield, and kiengiv does, wanting to keep his Registeel on the field.
Yes, and now the swap comes in, but this is a little bit dangerous because Umbreon's kind of healthy. I know it doesn't have Protect Shields, but Seed Bomb just does not do enough. This is a little risky by kiengiv.
This is incredibly unconventional, bringing in the Ghost type to face off against the Dark type Umbreon, and as we see, the Seed Bomb is not enough. Can another Seed Bomb do the trick? Umbreon up to 2 foul plays.
It just does nothing, and the foul play is going to be coming out here. You can't, no, it's a shield, but the thing is, the Umbreon is at another foul play. I know also the Trevenant has a Seed Bomb. This is going to be charge move priority, and it is going to be the Trevenant winning this, but Speedy, this is going to knock out the Trevenant with the foul play.
Swiping every single bubble possible, wants the biggest Seed Bomb, gets it! Oh! That's so critical, in comes the Swampert, and look at this, recognizing the Trevenant is down energy, builds up a lot of energy. Swampert might just strike back here.
My goodness, that did knock out the Umbreon, but this Hydro Cannon is going to be able to knock out the Trevenant, and all you need to do is get to a Hydro Cannon, and that is Swampert's specialty, getting to that Hydro Cannon so quickly and knocking out the Registeel.
Don't call it a comeback. Swampert able to get the better of Registeel after almost impossible alignment. Both trainers trying to visualize the win conditions, an early switch, a second's hesitation. I think that was the factor in that match.
Yeah, the most interesting part of that battle to me was that swap into Trevenant against that Umbreon. But as you saw, the 2 Seed Bombs did KO the Umbreon. So that maybe was what kiengiv was looking for initially, but there wasn't enough momentum to handle the Swampert because the Trevenant is just so low health at that point because taking some damage from the Umbreon.
I think two things were at play. The first thing was anticipation. I think King was anticipating the Umbreon would reach another foul play sooner than it did, and that is why he made the switch, because he wanted to keep Registeel healthy. The second is that earlier on today, we saw Crimson K versus kiengiv, and a simultaneous swap to catch a charge move.
Yes.
I think King was anticipating a switch out, tried to call it too early, and it wasn't successful.
Interesting. Yeah, that is an interesting call. Like you mentioned, trying to swap out and maybe charge move priority tie with the Swampert on that Hydro Cannon would have been an amazing play. The crowd would have gone crazy. Didn't quite work out this time maybe, but still, like you mentioned, it's a long series. It's 1-1, and now Trent, who had lost 4 games in a row to this team, finally picks up a point in this matchup.
We are all tied up. Again, this is a best of 5 battles. So if one trainer wins this next match, there will be another game afterwards. We are heading into our game number 3. It looks like Swampert is on the field versus Sableye.
Yeah, and here we go, a pretty neutral matchup, the Swampert into the Sableye here, but you actually prefer to be not Shadow because 2 Hydro Cannons will be enough to feint in a swap out. Doesn't care about alignment. It's Umbreon into Registeel once again.
Oh my goodness, what a critical decision. It only took a second, but choosing to send Registeel against the Umbreon, that tells you a lot. If the Alolan Ninetales is in the back, your best counter is on the field already.
And yes, you do see the Alolan Ninetales in the back, and you did see an Azumarill and Registeel backline, so this Umbreon had no place to go no matter what, so it's just going to sacrifice itself for the team and take this Focus Blast.
It's going to take the super effective damage there as we see Umbreon, but we know it has so much HP and such great bulk, it cannot possibly be lock-on down, so it does need at least one more charge attack to secure the KO.
Do you ever go for some kind of Zap Cannon and lock on down here if you're kiengiv? Do you try to gain some momentum for future matchups, or do you just want to take this Umbreon out, not have to worry about the switch timer, and just not have to worry about this Umbreon ever again?
That is a really good question. Umbreon was so problematic in game number 2. I'm sure it's at the top of kiengiv's mind. We do see the Registeel building some additional energy and finally going to deploy a Focus Blast. Now the trick here, Tua Butters, is that Registeel has just enough HP to avoid getting Mudshot down by the super effective ground attacks from Swampert.
Yes.
Oh, a Simul Swap! And then a counter swap! Alolan Ninetales versus Azumarill now.
This is perfect for kiengiv. Look at this Sableye just sitting safe in the back there, not having to deal with this Alolan Ninetales, and now it's going to be the Azumarill into the fellow Fairy type Alolan Ninetales.
I cannot emphasize enough how important this switch is in terms of advantage in the matchup, because Sableye, again, like you mentioned, gets to avoid the Ninetales.
Yes, and I think Trent's plan originally was to swap in the Umbreon to bait out the Registeel so Alolan Ninetales could do well in the back, and then King baited it back, baited out that Alolan Ninetales with the Azumarill.
It's a bit of tug of war as both of these trainers are trying to get the advantage and get the edge, take a step ahead of the other one. Azumarill striking back with the play rough, but kiengiv has to be feeling good seeing this Alolan Ninetales HP tick down.
And this bubbles are not going to be enough, so this Azumarill is going to be going down, but this Alolan Ninetales has such low health, and this Registeel is going to be able to soak up this damage, no problem, probably even survive because of its bulk.
I think Registeel hangs on here, gets a few more lock-ons, and look at that Ninetales. That almost looks ready for a Shadow Claw down.
And lock on, lock on, lock on, lock on, not enough. Because the Charm does take it down. We see the energy from the Sableye here. It's going to be throwing the foul play. This is a big shield call. Was at return energy, and no shields it.
No shield, but the critical thing here is that your Swampert is now down into the red in terms of HP, and the Shadow Claws are just cutting through, and now we see a Hydro Cannon from Swampert.
But there's 2 shields that Trent has to get through, has to double Hydro Cannon here, and it's not going to be enough before the Shadow Claws take it out. I don't think this Swampert's going to be able to get the 3.
We do see the Swampert firing again, another Hydro Cannon, but like you mentioned, it needs a couple more mud shots in order to reach energy for a 3rd.
This Swampert needs this Hydro Cannon, and it is denied of it. The Sableye farms it down, and in its Shadow Claws, the Alolan Ninetales, kiengiv, and his Sableye getting revenge.
Revenge of the dark type Sableye as it shreds through that back line. kiengiv now up 2-1 in the series. The way the momentum swung in that last match was like watching an old-fashioned clock, a pendulum, back and forth and back and forth. And the switches, a lot of the time, force counter swaps. You want to put yourself in the best position, and just waiting a couple extra seconds can put you behind. So sometimes it's just an instinct. You just see the swap, you make the swap.
Yes, one popular strategy in Pokemon Go PvP is to try to bait out an answer for your backline. So that Umbreon was trying to bait out the Registeel to get it out of the way for the Alolan Ninetales. kiengiv registered that and baited out Trent right back. Threw in the Azumarill and baited out that Alolan Ninetales so that Sableye could hide. And we've seen more Trevenant action from kiengiv in these games, so it's possible Trent was thinking, maybe Alolan Ninetales doesn't have a target, so I'm going to bring it in.
Now these trainers are pretty evenly matched, but we are headed into what could be a decisive Game 4. Let's get some hype in the crowd. Swampert, Registeel, and the switch out.
kiengiv looking for a ticket to the grand finals here and is going to try to go for the Earthquake against this fellow Ice type.
Wow, my goodness, we do see that swap, and now I think this is a strategy to lure out that Alolan Ninetales. We do see the Walrein deploying an Earthquake here. This is a Shadow Walrein, and boom! That Ninetales loses a lot of HP.
That does a lot of damage. You might think that this Walrein can go for Powder Snow down. It is denied by the Psyshock here. This is a tough decision, and deciding to let go of the Walrein.
I think we're about to see a lock on down as Registeel is poised to come back out, absorb some resisted charms, and try to gather some energy.
The tables have turned though. Trentszcz Trevenant is now looking amazing versus kiengiv's backline, deciding to bring it in this game number 4, and the lock on down does happen.
Now we do see the Swapper come back out. This is our initial lead matchup. The difference here is that Registeel is now ahead in energy, so it's available to strike first.
And like we saw, we do have the Trevenant in the back for Trent here, and it is a swap, and it's going to be counter swapped, and now we see the back lines going at it. It is the Trevenant into the Azumarill. The Azumarill did get a little bit of energy, but it's denied because the Seed Bomb's going first.
This is a question of pacing. We know that the Shadow Claws allow Trevenant to gather energy a bit faster than Bubble. It can reach these Seed Bombs a bit more quickly. However, this Ice Beam will deal back super effective damage.
Yes, this will do a decent amount of super effective damage, so Trent decides to Protect Shield, wanting to value the Trevenant, and as you've seen the whole back line, it's smart to do so.
It's absolutely critical. We've seen so many Trevenants morph into brooms and sweep away the competition, and we do see a Trevenant firing off another Seed Bomb here.
Yes, and this won't be enough to the bulk of the Azumarill, and these Ice Beams are just weighing on this Trevenant, deciding to shield it. This is the most impactful, efficient shield for Trent because resisting all of the damage from the Registeel.
No, it's critical to recognize, even when a Pokemon's not on the field, what kind of potential does it have to deal damage to your own Pokemon? And I think, again, shielding these moves makes a lot of sense. Here we see another Seed Bomb come through. kiengiv shielding the Azumarill. He can switch out, and here comes the Swampert. A combo play. This is a resisted Hydro Cannon. Butters, I think it survives this.
Bold play to shield the Azumarill so low when you knew Trent had the Hydro Cannon in the back, and taking out the Azumarill, not quite, and able to swap it out with some health left, and now this Swampert's desperately trying to get to an Earthquake, and it's gonna get there.
This might be lights out for the Registeel as Swampert musters all this energy for an Earthquake. It will break ground, and Registeel will faint.
Turn out all those lights. Registeel goes down, and then Swampert mudshots to tie up the series.
We are all tied up. You can wash your hands of it. You can stretch, you can kind of reset your mind. This is essentially a sudden death match.
Yes, it's tied 2-2 in this matchup. Trent versus kiengiv. It doesn't get bigger than this. This is Pokemon Go PvP at its finest.
And the winner of this set will go on to face the winner's final champion in the grand finals. So one of these trainers is going home in a few short minutes, and the other one is competing for a championship.
Yeah, a lot of pressure, a lot on the line. Both these trainers want to move on, want to go to Worlds. Only one will be able to do so. And now we have to worry about the Tango, like I mentioned before. Do you bring the Registeel? Do you bring the Registeel counters? Which ghost type do you bring? Do you bring the Trevenant? Do you bring the Sableye? Do you risk matching up against the Alolan Ninetales?
Let's just give credit where credit is due. Trent has had a very difficult time against this team composition, but he has made such incredible adjustments over the past 2 games. I mean, it's stunning to see these trainers adapt in real time.
Yeah, really good adjustments. Fine play in that last game to bank that Hydro Cannon and put that Azumarill low enough just to knock it out. And we saw kiengiv actually desperately trying to go for the switch button. And this is a game of inches. It's a game of reflexes. It's fast paced. It's dynamic. And kiengiv couldn't quite get there.
He couldn't quite get there, and those critical moments are so important for overall success. Now we are headed into a decisive Game 5 as we get loaded in here. Let's see how this unfolds. Oh my goodness, it looks like Registeel's on the field versus Ninetales.
This is not good for the Alolan Ninetales. Safe swap into Stunfisk actually, and it's met by the Medicham. This is fantastic alignment for kiengiv.
Medicham just punching through this Steel and Ground type Pokemon. Stunfisk can strike back though. It's known for its versatility. Here comes a same type attack bonus Earthquake, which will deal a significant amount of damage.
And Trent's gonna have to pull off a miracle here as the Medicham is just weighing down on this Galarian Stunfisk. Throwing the Ice Punch, this will be neutral, but this Galarian Stunfisk is so close to fainting from counters.
Absolutely, Galarian Stunfisk dipping down into the red in terms of HP, but oh, kiengiv, recognizing the potential second Earthquake, throws another Ice Punch. You have to negate that energy.
Yeah, you have to do that. You do not want to give up a Protect Shield or take that Earthquake. So kiengiv was precise once again, just showing off how good he is.
Both of these competitors are so seasoned. They played so many matches and they know their matchups. Medicham unable to reach a charge attack, but you can hear it in our voices. That's not the worst of it. It's all about alignment. Registeel and the counter swap again. Azumarill, Medicham.
And it is this Azumarill into the Medicham. You can hear the crowd cheer because you know this Azumarill has a good matchup, but Medicham has the tools to fight back.
Medicham throwing the Psychic here, claps its hands, and the Psychic does not trigger a defense drop, which is more good news for kiengiv.
Yes, the chance of the defense drop does not happen, and now you have to imagine the Protect Shields come up because you have to value this Medicham because Alolan Ninetales is not even going to scratch that Registeel.
Exactly, we do see the Azumarill gathering energy, and the Medicham will strike again. A potential another Psychic. Does kiengiv shield? And he does. Both Protect Shields now off the board.
Smart play, just trying to keep this lined up, trying to keep the Azumarill healthy here. Just gonna keep going for these play roughs. There's only one Protect Shield remaining, and as expected, Trent does deploy it.
Sometimes it's easy to get mesmerized by these longer matchups, but don't blink because the switch timer just expired. A catch is possible here. Swapping in, catching resistant damage is a play, but here comes Medicham with a third Psychic.
And this next moment is huge. Only one of the win conditions for Trent is the swap on a play rough possibly and keep the Medicham healthier, and tries it right at the play rough, but it is denied by the Registeel.
Trent twists his hips and tries to tango out of that matchup, but is unable to escape, and now we have the Registeel bearing down on the Fairy Ice type Alolan Ninetales.
Yeah, was not able to wiggle out of Registeel's grasp here, and now it's gonna cannon this Alolan Ninetales back to its Pokeball.
Zap Cannon does so much damage, and Alolan Ninetales gets even slower in terms of dealing damage back due to that attack drop.
Yes, and this Weather Ball is not going to do much at all. It's going to be looking like a lock-on down, even being able to threaten the Medicham in the back. There are no switch timers available. They're stuck in this matchup.
Registeel again standing so strong and gathering so much energy with all those lock-ons. Here comes the Medicham. Immediate Zap Cannon before a single counter can come through.
And this Zap Cannon is poised to knock out the Medicham. Not quite yet, but a last-minute swap to try to go for the combo move. An Ice Beam, but a bubble goes through. Shake of a hands by two great competitors here, and wow, what a game.
A nail biter and a sigh of relief for one competitor as kiengiv will move up to the winner's bracket in the grand finals. Congratulations to Trent for what an incredible tournament performance. My goodness, these are two of the best trainers in the world.